All right, everyone, we are live with Stream of Consciousness with Dan. And today I'm joined by someone whose life and work span more chapters than most of us could ever dream of. Dr. Carolyn Crocker. She's an international speaker, an author, a former microbiologist and professor, and the daughter and granddaughter of World War II survivors. You may know her from her powerful books such as Unforgivable Through a Child's Eyes and Brave Face, where she brings her family's wartime experiences to life with honesty, compassion, and a scientist's clarity. But she's also written 13 other books of various genres. What I love most about Carolyn's work is just the way she makes complex ideas, trauma, truth, history, faith feel deeply human and accessible. She lives in Fairfax, Virginia with her husband and her mother. She's a mother herself of four and a grandmother of eight. I'm so grateful she's here today, and I'm excited to dive into her story. How are you doing today, Dr. Crocker?
I'm fine, and thank you for having me. And please do call me Carolyn.
Okay, I will call you Carolyn. I always have to make sure I will call you Carolyn going forward. And not Betty, not Betty Crocker. That's what I should definitely not do.
I'm not Betty. I'm Carolyn.
So I'd love to start just at the beginning. Just kind of, what were you passionate about as a child? Just the things that grabbed your curiosity. Was it music? Was it, I don't know, playing outside? Was it sports? Was it reading? Just kind of what kind of got you going as a kid?
Do you know, I wanted to be a ballerina. In fact, I spent all my time um, dancing to classical music around my parents' house. So I was a little different. Uh,
Hey, there's
sport,
nothing wrong with that.
sports didn't do it for me. Classical music would and still does bring me to tears. I taught myself the piano because I was one of five children, and my parents said, "Well, you can have lessons in one thing only." So I decided to have lessons in ballet, and I figured I could teach myself to play the piano, and so that's what I did.
So I love that. I can actually relate to that in two ways. So it's so funny. When I was, oh gosh, maybe two or three, it was Winter Olympics time, and I was at my grandmother's house, and I was pretending to figure skate around the coffee table at grandma's house. And I try to, of course, do like one of those spins or whatever, and I knock my tooth right on the coffee table. And so yeah, so I had a brown tooth until that thing fell out. So I can relate to that to kind of that uh dancing thing as well. And I started taking piano lessons when I was 6. So yeah, it's music's very powerful for me. I love hearing that for sure. So just tell me a little bit more about your childhood. Were you close with your siblings? Just kind of what the vibe was like, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. Well, I'm the eldest of five, and the typical thing with eldest children is everybody's scared of them. And I have to say, I am the shortest of all of my siblings, and they're still scared of me. So it was just rather funny. Um, my sister is 10 years younger, and she's the only sister I have. The others are boys. When she was born, my dad said, "Well, she won't be a friend for you because she's too young." That's not true. She has always been my best friend, and in fact, my sister Jody lives in Des Moines, and I'm going to be
Okay.
seeing her soon. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's really neat. So, was there a moment, obviously you talked about wanting to be a ballerina, which is, I guess that kind of is like every little girl's dream sometimes, like, getting in the tutu and doing things like that. But when did something click in you where you're like, I want to be a scientist, or I want to be an author, or a speaker, and just all the things you've accomplished? Was there a moment that really sparked you to kind of not get serious, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. The tests of basic skills, I always scored sky high in biology and science. And but my thought was, well, no, I don't want to be a scientist because, they always have to have their hair in a bun and wear those really unflattering white coats. And I was, I had
You
that
wanted to
kind of.
wear you wanted to wear your ballerina
I
dress.
wanted to wear my tutu, right? And
Yeah,
then,
your tutu.
eventually I outgrew that. And when I went to university, I found that the biology classes were what I excelled in, and they were what I was interested in. And then I actually started community college at DMAC when I was 16. When
Oh
I was
wow.
18, my parents moved to England, and my dad gave me a choice. He said, well, either you can stay in Iowa, in which case you're on your own, or you can move to England with us, in which case I will pay for your university. And having been offered that choice, I decided to move to England.
Yeah.
And I went to the university, which was next door to my parents. English universities are different from American universities in that you only learn one subject. In other words, you don't do anything
Oh
except your
wow.
major. And so I was offered a bunch of majors, and there was one microbiology and virology. I was fascinated by viruses because, they are not alive, and yet you can kill them. It's like the undead, It was so cool. And so I was like, I want to learn about viruses. And that was how I got started in biology. So I did, the degree in a bachelor's degree where I was living in Coventry, England, and then eventually went on and did a master's and a doctorate.
It's incredible. I did not know that part of your story. So that's really cool. And I also didn't know that, yeah, it's all about the major there, which is very interesting because, I have a background in accounting and finance, but like in college, like you said in America, I'm learning about Shakespeare and
Yeah.
American history and things like that.
Yeah,
So
totally not.
it's
Yeah,
very
totally not.
interesting.
Yeah, they told, in fact, I said to them, well, I'd also like to, take a class in Spanish, and they laughed at me.
Well, lo siento.
So yeah, not that. Only. I mean, I was allowed to take a class in, math for scientists
Hmm.
and chemistry, but no English, no nothing like that, no history.
Oh, that's
That's how
just
they do it
wild.
there. Yeah.
So I think I want to talk about kind of, did you go directly to your master's and doctorate after college, or did you have kind of a waiting period, or did you just keep going, going, going until you got through everything?
I did have a waiting period. When I got married 2 weeks after I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And then my husband went to college at Oxford University. So I worked to help support him for a while. I did some research in multiple sclerosis, but despite being a biologist, I clearly didn't know how to prevent pregnancy, and I found myself expecting our first child. And my boss at the time, he said, "Well, come in, bring your baby, put her on the lab bench." I, we were working with all kinds of nasty viruses. No, I don't think so. And so I stayed home. And in fact, I ended up staying home taking care of my children until my youngest went to nursery school. And then I went back to work, and my supervisor at Birmingham University said, "Hey, why don't you do a master's degree with me?" So I did. And yeah, and then after the master's degree, we moved back to America. In fact, we moved to Council Bluffs, Iowa, and I
Jeez.
started working at Creighton University and realized that I actually wanted to go ahead and do the doctorate. And that's the strange story. I don't know that many people do this. In fact, I don't know if I'm not the only one in the world, but I wanted to do a doctorate. I did not want to do it the American way because I had started in the English way, and it's a very different system. I
Hmm.
didn't want to redo things that I had already done. So, what I did was I asked my supervisor at Creighton if I can bring in the money and convince a professor in England to take me on as a doctoral student. Will you let me do a doctorate in England while I work for you? And he said, if you can pull that off, yes.
Oh,
So so I did. I was presenting some of my work at an international conference on allergies. I saw a British professor. I told him about my idea, and he said, if you can pull it off, go for it. So I wrote to a bunch of pharmaceutical companies and suggested some research projects for them. Two of them sponsored me to do research on the same thing. They each wanted me to compare their drug to the other guy's drug. So that meant that I could use the money from one company to do what they wanted and use the money from the other company to sponsor myself doing a doctorate.
oh
And
man.
that's what I did. So I did my doctorate at University of Southampton in England without ever having gone there. And I corresponded with my supervisor by email.
That is so cool.
Very
Carolyn,
unusual.
that is so cool. It is also cool because uh you're doing this, while you're living in Council Bluffs, and I have my master's in business administration from Creighton. So it's so cool
Yeah.
that you were able to do that. It kind of showed, they're probably not going to do that for everybody. So like your work had to speak for themselves and you had to put yourself out there. So yeah, that's just an amazing story. I absolutely love that. So I'm kind of going to go actually a little bit off script since we're talking science before we get into kind of your books. Where do you see kind of the pharmaceutical market today in America? I know it's always kind of a hot topic, like medications are so expensive, blah blah blah. We hate the pharmaceutical companies. I just kind of where do you stand on that? We don't need to get too political, just kind of where do you stand on what that market looks like right now?
Hmm. I guess I don't really have enough information. It's not something I'm doing right now. And so
Hmm.
I don't feel like I can speak with any degree of expertise. Obviously, the costs of our medications, particularly those that are essential, like insulin, are too high.
Hmm.
Um, but for the rest, I just don't have the expertise to be able
No,
to
that's fair
answer in a
enough.
way that's going to be helpful to your listeners.
That's fair enough. I just know as someone who takes a medication I need every day, it's very expensive and it kind of stinks that,
Yeah.
you have to spend that much money. But I just thought I'd mention that. But no, I appreciate that you didn't want to say something that you weren't confident about. Uh so we're gonna shift gears a little bit to World War II, which I'm super pumped to talk about. I'm despite being an accountant, very attuned to history. I'm a big history buff. I love just researching, watching documentaries, things like that. So, can you, before you even get into your books, just talk about what was it both your mother and your grandmother?
Both my parents, they came from the Netherlands. They immigrated when they got married. They immigrated into Canada, which is where I was born, and then eventually we moved to America. Um, but they both grew up in the Netherlands during World War II,
Okay, gotcha.
and so all my family were there.
So yeah, so I'm just gonna get right to the thick of things now. You've written about incredibly heavy, painful chapters of history that your family has lived through, and I just love to talk about the courage it takes to bring those stories to the page. I mean, World War II devastated millions of families on both sides, every country you can name. So as someone who didn't experience it personally or even secondhand, I'm just struck by the courage it must take for someone like you to write about that stuff. So what gave you that strength or the clarity to start telling those stories?
I started after my father passed away. My mother needed a distraction. And so what I did was I wrote down all the stories she told me about her childhood while we were growing up. So she told us stories about her childhood. And so I wrote them all down. They were funny stories, crazy things she did.
Hmm.
And I showed her that and I said, "Hey, Mom, what do you think? Would those make a book?" I was kind of thinking a children's book. And she looked at it and she said, "Well, you haven't told most of it." And I said, "Mom, you haven't told me the rest." And so after that, she and I sat down for almost 5 years while I pulled out of her the stories that were not suitable for children.
Right.
And so we talked about it, and then I had to do a lot of research because, the memories of someone between 5 and 9 years old, which was how old she was, they're not always very accurate. She didn't know in
Hmm.
what order things happened. And so I then did a lot of historical research to see what was happening in The Hague during that time. And then I connected some of her stories with things that happened there. And some of those were surprising. Um, like finding out, okay, that the Bezoudenhout neighborhood was bombed, and that was when my grandmother was having a baby, and how did that impact things? Or there was a building that was bombed, and actually my mother was at the playground with her sister, and so she was an eyewitness to the bombing of that building. And there were things where I could put it together, and
Gotcha.
so that story, kind of grew legs, as it were. And the more my mom and I talked about it, the more she remembered. So actually, it's a surprising amount that she remembered, and you can read that in the book. It's all firsthand memories.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's sad and amazing at the same time. Obviously, no child should have to, go through what she went through, but I imagine it was kind of neat. Sorry if I'm getting a little emotional. It'd be kind of neat to, talk through that, with your mother and kind of, feel what she felt and things like that. So I guess I'm going to ask, did you feel a sense of duty to preserve those stories and to publish them? Or I guess what necessarily was the inspiration to completely be like, I'm going to do this?
I you know she when she was talking to me about it, she talked about the Hunger Winter, which was the last year of the war in the Netherlands, when the the Allies asked the Dutch people to have the railways go on strike, so that would hamper the German efforts in
Hmm.
the Netherlands. The Germans retaliated by not allowing any more food into that part of the country. And then before they could lift that ban, it was one of the coldest winters on record, and all the canals froze. The bridges had been bombed, and nothing could run anymore. The result was that that part of the country got no food at all. The Allies had actually marched through, and they had liberated some of the Netherlands, but the part that was starving they did not liberate. And the information the people who were there got was that they were not of strategic importance. You can understand that. The Allies had to go through and, defeat the Germans. They couldn't.
Hmm.
But the people who were starving were told, "You're not of strategic importance." Mom was 9. So what she internalized was, "You're not important. In fact, you are so unimportant, you're not even worthy of food." All my life, I have noticed that mom has an inferiority complex that she tries to compensate for. And I didn't know where it came from. But when she told me and kept repeating the phrase, not of strategic importance. Suddenly it hit me.
Oh man.
And so I thought it was very important to get this book out because then she will feel important. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. During the launch event, she was glowing. And after the book was published, she walked into her church and they gave her a standing ovation.
Oh man.
She was just blown away because
Wonderful.
suddenly her childhood was validated. Her suffering was validated. And I'm not saying that suddenly she doesn't have any issues with her self esteem. Oh, no, those remain. But this
Mhm.
has been very important to her. And she still loves it to be able to talk about her book to anyone who's willing to
Right.
listen.
Oh my gosh, that's very powerful stuff. I'm gonna have to take a quick second
Sorry.
there. Wow. Um, I'm kind of an emotional guy sometimes, so
That's okay.
uh, I
Just
can't
don't.
wait to I can't wait to read. I've read some excerpts of the book. I haven't been able to read it front to back yet, but I'm super excited to do that. Um, so I guess my next question, obviously that meant so much to you and to your mother. Um, I guess what as a society can we do to remember those stories better? When you're going through school, you read Diary of Anne Frank, like that's what you read about World War II, like uh Hitler's bad, the Nazis are bad, there's Auschwitz. Like, I guess my real question is there anything as a society we can do to honor, what those people had went through more? Or I guess just any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, I think it is important to teach. I think it's also important to apply. When I don't want to get political, but when I hear about the children going to camps, I am aware that that is happening here.
Uh-huh.
And I also know that we blame the Germans for not doing anything, but I'm not doing anything.
Hmm.
And so I struggle with that. That's something that I am aware of and I struggle with. And, right now what I'm trying to do is just get the stories out there. The same with my father's story, which is in Unforgivable, where, he was part Jewish. And so as I did the research for that book, which I wrote after he was gone, I realized most of his relatives are dead. They were killed at Auschwitz. And, that was very shocking for me. I found that book much more difficult to write than Brave Face because of the tragedy of it.
Hmm. And I think what I really resonate with, and I'm gonna have to do some research really quick. I don't know why I don't know this off the top of my head, but there's an amazing book about World War II from Italy's side. I hope you've heard of it. Is it been beneath? Oh, Beneath a Scarlet Sky. Are you familiar with that book?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Oh, I would definitely suggest it, but it
Okay.
just that book kind of opened my eyes to just different sides of the war.
Mm,
Um, just like I said, when you're going to school, you just kind of learn, like I said, Hitler's bad, the Jews go to Auschwitz. That's basically it. Like, there's so many different sides to it. I'm not blaming my history teachers, but yeah, so I would suggest reading that book for sure. I think
okay,
you'd
I wrote
really
it down.
enjoy it. I think you'd
I
really
think
enjoy it.
people learn a lot better through stories. And that is one of the reasons I like to write history as if it was fiction. What I
Hmm.
write in the books is not fiction. But when you read it, you think it is because, there are conversations and, adventures. And so you think it's fiction, but it's not. And people remember that so much better. So I think that's an
Oh,
important way of bringing that across.
no, absolutely. And I don't know. I think just in general, we need to read more. Um, you know,
Mm.
it also gives you kind of a sense of imagination because you're not seeing it on a screen. You're not seeing you, you have to picture it in your head, and it's so much more powerful in my opinion.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of want to shift now to your professional speaking, because I know you mentioned you've spoken on what I think three continents.
Right.
Um, so to all kinds of audiences, so I just love to explore kind of that side of your work, what you talk about, and what you hope people leaving from your appearance feel at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when I was a teenager, I was asked to do a reading, and I, I I totally couldn't do it. I stood up in front of everybody and ran out of the room. And so that I actually now speak to people, that's mind-boggling, but I do. And I enjoy it, and I don't even think it's scary. How about that? So I've been able to speak to audiences of thousands and small audiences. I quite often actually now go to nursing homes because they really identify with those stories from World War II. But also I recently went to a preschool, and there I was able to talk about what is it like to be an author, and could they be authors?
Mhm.
And read one of my children's books. So it's all kinds of things, which it's just fun for me. And
Oh, it's so beautiful because I love that you went from nursing home to nursery almost. No, but so I work for a senior living company, and so just the it I think it's so important for me to go to those places, and obviously I don't have the knowledge you do or the personal experiences, but to just talk to those people, just to talk
yeah,
to the people in the nursing homes, and it makes their day. It really does. So
yeah.
I love that you said that. So what, as someone who is not a confident public speaker, what gives you the courage to get up there? Is it, I feel like I can do it more like if I really know what I'm talking about, but it's still not easy. I still like feel like I'm going to throw up the entire time.
Hmm.
So what kind of gives you kind of that courage to step on that stage where, people are paying to listen to you speak?
I don't. Yeah, I don't need courage because it's not hard. I don't know why not. I mean, maybe it's because I was a college professor, and I do remember the first day I was teaching, and I came into the lab, and there was a young man sitting in the teacher's chair. And I said, and it was my first day. I was a little nervous, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm your helper." And I thought about it, and I'm thinking, not sure I have a helper. So I went and I asked the secretary, and she told me, "No, you don't have a helper." So I went to the classroom and I said, "Get out of my chair." And, and he did. And after that, I just realized they're just people, and I mean, in college, it's rather funny because some of them they bring their pillow to class, believe it or not, and they put it beside the wall, and they put their head against the wall. And as the professor, you can stand there and you can look at the students, and you know which ones are going to fail, and those are them. It's the ones who bring their pillow to class.
If I'm bringing my pillow to class, I'm not even gonna go to class. I'm gonna
It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it, but
Oh, that's really funny actually.
yeah.
So, if you don't mind, I would like to talk about faith a little bit.
Okay.
Because I believe on your profile you said your husband is an Anglican pastor.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so you've obviously lived a life shaped, by history, by family, by science, and obviously by faith. And I've always believed, I come from a Catholic background, but everyone needs something bigger than themselves to hold on to, if that's Christianity or Judaism, Islam, Taoism, just belief beyond something is grounding. So I just really wanted to just get your thoughts on what faith means to you and how it's impacted your life.
Mm. I actually did not really have much of a faith until I was 18. I had heard the story that Jesus loves children, and so I figured that if he existed, I was pretty safe until I reached 18, at which point he wouldn't like me anymore. So, but when I wasn't a very logical kid, was I? But when I was 18, I decided that I wanted to know if God exists. And so I went to the chaplaincy at the university where I was in England, University of Warwick, and I started going to the services, the Sunday services, just because I wanted to know, well, does he exist? And I heard the chaplain preaching on the Ten Commandments. And every commandment, he said, you can't do this, which was totally consistent with my experience, that I could not be good in my own strength. I just couldn't. He said, but Jesus helps you. And the reason he died for you was so that you could go to heaven anyway. And for me, that was the first time I'd heard something that made sense. Because when I was told, just be good, I knew that wasn't going to work because I know I'm not good.
Mhm.
And so this was totally logical for me. And I guess for me, faith is logical. Not believing isn't logical. And so I don't know. So when I was 18, I made a personal commitment to Jesus, and I then married a my Bible study leader when I was 21, and he then went into the ministry, and I found myself to be a clergy wife. So there we are. The rest is history. I've just gone on, and yeah, I this has been a big part of my life. In fact, it's been the central grounding part of my life.
Oh man, that's cool. Um, it's so cool because everyone has their own kind of, spiritual journey. I was kind of like the opposite. I was the super uber religious person growing up, and then in college I was like, heck no, I don't need this anymore. And then now kind of as I'm growing into more of an adult, I'm like, I do need this. It matters. It's important. Like I said, it doesn't matter what religion it is, but just to have something to ground you and to, commit yourself to, which I think is one of the most important things. So I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful story. Um, so I guess before we wrap up, we've talked a ton about, your books and everything like that. But where do you kind of see yourself going? Are you just going to continue writing and speaking? Are you do you have anything in the works, new books or anything? Just kind of talk about where Carolyn wants to see herself in, 5 years.
5 years, my gosh. I'll be 73.
How about 5 days? We can do five
Okay.
days. I was
um, do you know, I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing right now. My husband just retired, and so we do get to travel a little bit, but also he helps me at book events, which is really fun. I love writing. I'm not the kind of writer who says, oh, I have to discipline myself to write this many words every day. No, I have to discipline myself not to.
yeah.
It's because I think it's so interesting. The book I'm working on right now is about my grandmother's life. The reason I'm doing that is because when people read the book Unforgivable, the most frequent response I have is, what was wrong with that mother? Because
No.
his mother was horrible. I mean, she put her kids in a children's home, she didn't visit them, she was very emotionally distant. I don't know how my father grew up to be the wonderful man he did, but he did. Well, actually, I did figure it out and I put it in Unforgivable. So you have to read that to find out. But I wanted to, every person thinks that they are a reasonable human being. I think. So I thought, well, my grandmother must have thought she was a reasonable person. And so I wanted to investigate and find out, why did she do what she did? Why did she act like that? Now, I was very much helped because she wrote 5 books. And so they're all out of print and none of them are in English. But I did manage to get hold of them and I translated them and I've now read her books and got a lot of information from that. But information came from all sorts of places. And right now I'm in contact with someone who does family studies and is able to find out heritage. And well, it's just the book is going to be called The Truth Was Different because the truth about her was different.
Hmm.
And in fact, her autobiographical book is called De Werkelijkheid was anders, which means the truth was different. So I figured, that's a good title. So that is going to
I
be the
think you
next
need to
one.
publish it in that language.
Yeah, in Dutch, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh man,
maybe I
that's
could get
funny.
it translated into Dutch, but
Uh,
it's been fascinating because my grandmother wrote great details. She recorded everything in great detail, and because I'm a scientist, I've been able to look at some of the details and realize that what she was describing was actually a murder, but
oh
she
my.
didn't know.
Hmm.
And so that's one of the things that has come out through my research is, oh my gosh, this relative was murdered. Or another one was, as I was, my grandmother's brother and his wife and children all went to Auschwitz, and I wondered who betrayed them, and I just found out who did it yesterday. And just those things just blow my mind that I'm still finding out real history that has never been known before.
Well, for those who can't see me right now, my head just kind of exploded. Um, but no, that's so powerful what you're doing, doing that research because and it's just interesting too as well. So I,
Mhm.
I I love that you're doing that. And so where can everyone find your books? Whether it's, bookstores or Amazon or if you have an audio book or anything like that. I really want everyone listening out there to buy your work.
Oh, great. All my books are on Amazon, but the place you can find links to everything, because they're also in Barnes and Noble and every online bookstore, is on my website, which is ramblingruminations.com.
Okay.
And
And I'll
that's
definitely make sure to put that in the episode description for sure.
yeah, that's kind of a weird title, but it's because I told my son what I wanted to do, and he said, "So you're not going to stick to any one topic, Mom?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Okay, rambling ruminations." So, yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, so everyone listening out there, I will post that website and check her out on Amazon. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Like I said, I've read some excerpts. I haven't read it all yet, but um, it's some powerful stuff. And I think the last question I really want to talk about, we talked about faith, but I also want to talk just about family in general and what it means to you because I feel like that's really what drew me to you as a guest was the importance of family. I mean, you have your husband, you living with your mother, you have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, just the importance of family.
Yeah, well, they're for me they're very important. I mean, I've been married to my husband since 1979. I think I'm going to keep him, and you know,
For now.
my mom moved in with us about a year and a half ago after some health issues, and so she's with us most of the time. Every once in a while, she goes and stays with one of my siblings, but most of the time she lives with us. And yeah, we've got 3 children in the DC area, which is amazing, and 2 of them are the parents for 8 grandchildren. So we also have 8 grandchildren. The eldest is 16 and the youngest is 5. And they all love spending time at Grammy's house, and she loves having them here. I frequently tell them that they are the best grandchildren in the world. And they say, Grammy, every grandparent thinks that. And I tell them, yeah, but they're wrong. So,
Oh,
um,
that is such a grandchild thing to say.
and then well, I do have we have one son who lives in Texas, and we just went to see him, and that was also a great joy to us. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Carolyn, and I'm going to call you Dr. Crocker one more time. But but seriously, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Um, just your honesty and clarity, the way you carry, your stories. It's not just history, it's living reminders, and it means a lot. And I know it'll mean a lot to my listeners, so I can't thank you enough. And again, everyone, check out her work, Unforgivable Through a Child's Eyes, Brave Face. The other one that I forgot because you said it in Dutch, and then I got lost.
The truth was different is
Oh, the
not
truth is
public.
different.
It's not
But
out yet.
but
I'm
you
still
will be
editing.
looking for it. But you should
Yes.
be looking for it.
Yes.
And yeah, so go buy her stuff. And just again, thanks so much for sharing your voice, your wisdom, and your heart with us today. It's truly been an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.